And this series, I think when we look back on it, will be what we refer to as the Jeff McNeil series. Of course, Jeff had the 2-homer night on Friday, the first time he's had 2 homers in a game since his first full season in the big leagues in 2019. I believe it was September of 2019. And then, of course, on Monday night, he drives in 3 runs. He gets the scoring started for the Mets with the 2-run home run, and he appropriately squeezes the final out of the game, which the second he squeezed his glove on that ball, I said, that makes sense, because this right here, this was the Jeff McNeil series. Jeff McNeil is a guy who, if you're looking for a Met that could have a big Subway Series round 2, Jeff McNeil's your guy. And I don't just say that because of how good he was down in Miami, but .330 career average against the Yankees, no matter where games are played, OPS over 800. So perhaps Jeff can take advantage of the short porch, hit a couple more home runs here in Yankee Stadium before the team comes back to Citi Field. Jonathan Barron here, bringing you a little live reaction after the Mets they split 4-game series with the Miami Marlins over the weekend. A split that earlier in the day we're thinking, okay, we'll take a split. And then that game goes the way it is, with Edwin Diaz recording the third out in the 9th inning, with Mets Nation kind of holding its collective breath there. Things got a little bit tight, but the Mets are able to put the finishing touches on that second victory, earn the series split with the Miami Marlins. So I'm here to bring you through it all. Vito is not here. The first time I will do the show solo. Vito is enjoying his honeymoon with his lovely wife, Ala, right now. So I'm pretty sure they'll be listening at some sort of a beach resort or something like that. You know how Vito is. If you guys listen to the Howie Rose interview, Vito wore Gucci slippers to his wedding. So Vito's definitely not cutting any corners when it comes to accommodations, nor should they. Over in Santorini, I think, is where they are right now. So enjoy the trip, guys. We've got it here. Looking forward to seeing you. But a lot's happened since the last time we joined you. The Mets had a great draft, and we'll talk a lot about that. Not so much in this episode, but moving forward. Hope to hear from a couple of people in the Mets player development system that can shine some more light on the players selected by the Mets and the current status of the Mets player development system, which, if you ask the prognosticators, is in a great spot, especially after a really, really strong draft. We had the All-Star game, of course. The Mets went to Miami, and they finished up this 18-game stretch that we've been telling you about. Could be season-defining in some ways. Was really an opportunity for the Mets to put themselves right in the thick of this, or keep themselves, I should say, right in the thick of the wild card race. And when all was said and done, the Mets won 11-7 during the 18-game span that dated back to July 1st, well before the All-Star break. So do you sign for that? Well, if you told me that would be the record at the time, I'd probably say yes. This Marlins series, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there weren't frustrating moments. There most certainly were. The Mets could have won Sunday's game. The Mets could have won Friday's game. They had a situation late on Friday night where they had runners on second and third, trailing by 1 run. Similar luck on Sunday. Pete Alonso hitting a comebacker off the opposing pitcher. I think it was A.J. Puck. Bounced right to a fielder, and the Mets weren't able to tie the game. So they lost a couple close ones. Of course, they won a close one on Saturday, the 1-0 victory, headlined by Luis Severino, pitching 6 scoreless innings. And then the brilliance out of the bullpen, the A.B. bridge of, on some days at least, of Jose Butto and Daniel Nunez. So that's become somewhat of a formula for Carlos Mendoza. We saw Mendy go to those same guys the Saturday before the All-Star break, when the Mets had to nurse a lead in late innings. After Christian Scott couldn't get out of the 5th inning, Butto came in, got a big double play ball. Daniel Nunez stranded some runners. He did the same thing. Those two guys have been so good. Of course, on Monday night, Butto surrenders his first run as a reliever. But that notwithstanding, Butto's been great. Nunez has been great. Nunez not available seemingly on Monday night. But the Mets figure out a way to get it done. And this series, I think when we look back on it, will be what we refer to as the Jeff McNeil series. Of course, Jeff had the 2-homer night on Friday, the first time he's had 2 homers in a game since his first full season in the big leagues in 2019. I believe it was September of 2019. So a long time coming for Jeff. And then, of course, on Monday night, he drives in 3 runs. He gets the scoring started for the Mets with the 2-run home run, and he appropriately squeezes the final out of the game, which the second he squeezed his glove on that ball, I said, that makes sense, because this right here, this was the Jeff McNeil series. And of course, if the Mets can get Jeff McNeil going, we know how much longer we all know how long the lineup is to begin with. And a productive Jeff McNeil, who doesn't need to be Babe Ruth. And I know I say that as we're about to head into the Bronx for a battle with the Yankees. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But Jeff McNeil doesn't need to be the guy. He needs to be one of the guys. He just needs to go up there and put together competitive at bats. And when he's hitting home runs the way he is, of course, it's an addition. It's a boon to any lineup. And you heard Steve Gelbs talk about this, what Jeff has said, and that's focus on hitting the ball hard. That's it. Don't try to place the ball. We know the shift came into the sport a couple of years ago, and some people think that it perhaps affected Jeff and the way that he approaches his at bats. And if Jeff is finally letting that go and just focusing on hitting the ball hard, the results, if they are what they were down in Miami this weekend and Monday, the Mets are in a really good place with Jeff McNeil, who's making the most of an opportunity. Look, Jose Iglesias, white hot, 7-game hitting streak and on base percentage over 600. What Jose Iglesias is doing, that bat's not coming out of the lineup, you'd think, with how productive he's been. On the other side of the ball, he's also been incredible. I can't remember, and I was thinking about this before we pressed record here. I can't remember a defender that wore a Mets uniform that has looked as smooth and just together in the field as Jose Iglesias since probably Ray Ordonez, maybe. I don't go back as far as some of you guys might, but Ray Ordonez is probably the best Mets fielder in my lifetime. I know that Jose Iglesias has been with the Mets a little bit more than a month, so I don't want to start using the terms, best fielder in Mets history, anything like that. But man, he is just so short-handed no matter what position you put him at. He's making plays on hard hit balls at third base. We've talked about him turning the double play up the middle with another great fielder, Francisco Lindor. But Jose Iglesias, what more can you say? Of course, this podcast, we've raved about him ad nauseum. But because he's staying in the lineup, for Jeff, it was okay, where are my at-bats coming from? And Jeff has been given an opportunity with the injury to Starling Marte to play right field. And let's say this about Jeff McNeil also. Yes, great series offensively, but how about defensively, which is just as important for a guy like Jeff McNeil, because you can sprinkle him virtually anywhere. You could play him at second. You could play him at third in a pinch. You could play him in either corner outfield spot. We saw him rob Brian De La Cruz of a home run in the first game. We saw the relay throw that he made to nab Vidal Brujan at third base, him trying to turn a double into a triple on Monday. We saw him stick with a tough play in the ninth inning there where the ball kind of came up on him, but he was able to grab it, keep his composure, and throw to first base for a big out. That helped Edwin Diaz set him up for that 27th out. It was a really, really good series for Jeff McNeil. I think that you don't need me to tell you that, but for more reasons than just the 3 home runs and the 6 RBIs. So tip of the cap to Jeff McNeil, who, if you want to look ahead a little bit now to the Subway Series, round 2, the Mets really won a couple of laughers. The first 2 games between the Mets and Yankees of this season. Jeff McNeil is a guy who, if you're looking for a Met that could have a big Subway Series round 2, Jeff McNeil is your guy. And I don't just say that because of how good he was down in Miami, but during his career, Jeff McNeil has been outstanding against the Yankees. .330 career average against the Yankees, no matter where games are played, OPS over 800 at Yankee Stadium. Just as good, perhaps a little better, a .333 average in the Bronx. We know, of course, the short porch could be conducive to a guy like Jeff, who has been pulling the ball a lot, especially in the air. So perhaps Jeff can take advantage of the short porch, hit a couple more home runs here in Yankee Stadium before the team comes back to Citi Field to open up that big 7-game homestand. And as we enter round 2 of the Subway Series, both these teams came out of the break in similar ways. The Yankees split a 4-game series with the Rays. They won the wraparound game on Monday in a laugher. Had a couple disappointing losses over the weekend. The Mets split a 4-game series with a team from Florida. The Mets, of course, doing it on the road. And look, we all know Miami, house of horrors for the Mets, right? You think about even things that happened this past May. A very tough loss the Mets suffered in Miami on May 18th. Of course, the Marlins were at the forefront of, if you're around my age or Vito's age, some of the worst Mets moments of our lives, 2007, 2008. Ironically, the Mets had the Marlins number last year. The Mets were the team that really almost kept the Marlins out of the playoffs because the Mets, of course, we know weren't a great team in 2023. And the Marlins were not able to beat the Mets. They were okay with the rest of the National League East. It was the Mets who really gave them fits. So, kind of ironic that now things are flipped. The Marlins have had all sorts of struggles against the rest of the National League, 0-7 against the Nationals. But they've given the Mets problems, and let's tip our cap again because we've said this before. 26 guys in the other dugout / bullpen that are fighting for a lot in this game, whether it's arbitration dollars, whether it's jobs next year, whether it's to stay in the big leagues right now. Each and every guy that steps on the major league diamond has a purpose there. So when people say, and again, we caution you, when people say, oh, it's an easy team, you got to beat them. Let's remember that all these guys on both teams have a lot to play for. And this is not an easy sport to win every day, and we know that. That's why no one's gone 162-0. So while you might lament some chances missed by the Mets down in Miami on Friday, on Sunday, similar to what Brandon Nimmo said after the Pittsburgh 4-game split, you split these games on the road, you take care of business at home, you're in good shape. So the Mets will have that chance after they go to Yankee Stadium for 2, and we know those games are always fun, always sold out. New York City has not gotten over the novelty of the Subway Series, really. People always say, it's played out, it's played out. It can't be played out when you're selling out a 55,000-seat stadium in the Bronx or a 45,000-seat stadium at Citi Field. That doesn't make sense. So it's not played out, but right after that, the Mets will come home and they'll take on the Braves for a 4-game series, a very banged-up Braves team. Just lost Max Fried, lost Ozzie Albies. They signed Whit Merrifield after Merrifield was DFA'd by the Phillies earlier in the week, and Merrifield was hurt before even playing a game for the Braves, I think. So another team that's experiencing its problems, and the Minnesota Twins, who have a very high-octane offense. So the Mets will have their challenges cut out ahead of them. But for now, all focus turns to the Bronx, a 2-game series. We'll see if the Yankees get Giancarlo Stanton back. When he originally hurt the hamstring around this time a month ago. We'll see if Giancarlo Stanton returns to the Yankee lineup during the Subway Series. We all know the Yankees have had their struggles scoring runs at times since Stanton's gone down. We all know about what Luis Severino said to his former Yankee friends in that group chat that he shared with us, which, look, it's funny. And I love that it gives us a glimpse into the back and forth between these guys as human beings. And also, when a guy leaves a team, it's easy to think, okay, he's not wearing that laundry anymore. There's no connection there, but there is connection. In fact, when Vito and I got to spend some time with Luke Voit down in spring training, this past spring training, Luke Voit was a minor league invitee to Mets camp. And we got to meet Luke Voit. We became big fans of him from his time with the Syracuse Mets last season. He originated the Syracuse sleeveless jersey idea, and he hit a 425-foot home run, and we lost our minds on Future of Flushing. So we got to meet Luke, and he was sporting number 99. And we asked him about it, and he told us that he actually texted Aaron Judge, his former Yankee teammate from a couple years back, and asked him for permission to wear number 99. So the Severino thing it's a fun little insight into what goes on behind the scenes. Sevy's a fun guy. We know that. He's always the guy holding the OMG sign when he's not on the mound. When he is on the mound, he's letting the emotions hang loose, which we saw again on Saturday when he was getting pumped after big strikeouts to end innings again. Had that high fastball working, blowing it by Marlins, getting a lot of chases with that pitch. But yeah, I thought it was a fun little tidbit for Sevy to share with all of us, the media, and the rest of us now that he told his former Yankee teammates, what am I worried about? You guys only have 2 good hitters. So I would caution a little bit of thinking that this Yankee lineup only actually has 2 good hitters. Anthony Volpe has shown some signs of life. He homered on Monday for the Yankees. Ben Rice had a 3-homer game not too long ago. Oswaldo Cabrera. Gleyber Torres can always get hot at any point in time. DJ LeMahieu had a home run on Monday. So, whenever these 2 teams get together, you really kind of have to throw the records out the window. Whatever's happening right now kind of goes out the window. There's a lot of pride on the line. The stands are electric no matter what year it is. Both these teams want to win these games. And, of course, the Yankees, who came into Citi Field and gave up a lot of home runs and a lot of runs in general, I'm sure they want to get the Mets back. And it doesn't help the Mets case necessarily that the 2 guys that the Mets will face in the Bronx on Tuesday and Wednesday happen to be Garrett Cole and Luis Heel, not in that order. Heel will pitch the first game. Cole pitches the second game. And those are the two guys that the Mets did a lot of damage to. So I'm sure those two guys will go out there trying to learn a lesson from their last time out against the Mets. The Mets were aggressive hunting fastballs, especially against Garrett Cole. A lot's happened since the June 25th, June 26th games, but in a lot of ways, a lot is still the same. Both of these teams are playing important games in late July. And also, this all is leading us straight into the trade deadline where both front offices and all 30 front offices are evaluating as each minute passes, really trying to figure out, okay, what is it we need? What are we willing to part with? Are we truly buyers here? Are we truly sellers? I think you're going to see a lot of teams that are in the middle more so than we've ever seen before because there are really only a handful of teams in baseball right now that are truly, truly out of it, right? You know, the Rockies are one of those teams, and Ryan McMahon's name has been floated in trade rumors surrounding the New York Yankees. The Marlins are another one of those teams that we just saw Tanner Scott and his brilliance, his dominance, throwing 100 from the left side with a nasty wipeout slider. And a guy like Jazz Chisholm, who I'm sure a lot of Mets fans after this week probably don't want to see him again for a long time because it's a seller's market, because there are so many top heavy teams, if you would, that are all competing and thinking that this could be their year. And there's been a lot of injuries and a lot of need has been created by those injuries. There could be some teams that say, hey, I could actually part ways with this piece because I perhaps have an abundance here and be able to gather assets and still compete at the same time. And I think that the new wild card rule, coupled with the way that really the standings have shaken out this year, with there being so many top heavy teams and so few really, I don't want to say terrible teams, after I just got done telling you that there's 26 players in each dugout who care a whole heck of a lot, but just a few teams that are truly out of it, that don't really have any real playoff aspirations. I mean, the Mets left Pittsburgh, and you weren't thinking that the Pirates were really going to stay in this race. And what do you know? The Pirates have gotten hot. They've won 6 of 7. They're right in the thick of this thing. The Cubs are still not out of this race. The Giants are still not out of this race. The Cincinnati Reds are still not out of this race. The Washington Nationals, who have already traded Hunter Harvey, so they've signaled they are willing to move on from players. They're still a young team that has put together and strung together wins throughout this season. A lot of talent. They brought up James Wood. He's been getting hot of late. What am I saying? Not out of this race whatsoever. So I do think that we're going to see, for the first time more than ever before, teams both being proactive when it comes to buying and proactive when it comes to selling as well. And I think a lot of that is going to be driven by what the market demand is for some pieces. So, like I said, teams that have an abundance of talent in certain areas, they will be able to move pieces from those areas and gain assets and build towards the future. As for the Mets, like we said last Sunday, the Mets have a lot of internal options. And of course, I'm sure they're looking at external options as well. Shintaro Fujinami continues his rehab. He's thrown a couple scoreless innings for the Syracuse Mets in his recent rehab appearances, so he's an option. Sean Reed-Foley and Reed Garrett, as you heard Gary Cohen mention late in the game on Monday night. Those guys both trending positively. So right there, you could have 3 guys who could help the Mets when it comes to the bullpen. And of course, the impact of the return of Kodai Senga, which Vito and I spoke about in our last episode last Sunday, a couple Sundays ago, where we talked about the domino effect that the return of a Kodai Senga could have on a team, because you are able to push guys in the rotation possibly into bullpen roles. A guy like Jose Buto, he could stay in that bullpen role, and we know he's been a relief ace. David Peterson, how great has David Peterson been? The Mets have now won 8 straight games started by David Peterson. Once again, had the nasty change working. He's really gotten aggressive up in the zone with his fastball. Notice that in his start against the Pirates, where he kind of was like, I'm gonna throw this FU fastball by you, and there's nothing you can do about it right now. And when you have that FU fastball up in the zone, and reminder, David Peterson, who maybe throws 94, 95, the perceived velocity, because he gets such great extension, that pitch is getting on a hitter a little bit quicker. The swing decision, you don't have as much time to make. And then you've also got to fend off against, to a righty, the back foot slider or the down and away changeup. So David Peterson has really been aggressive. He's really, really done a good job not falling behind in counts the way that he, let's face it, used to. When he first came into this league, David Peterson found himself behind in counts a lot early. And when you're trailing constantly 2-0, 3-0 in the count, you got 2 options. You're going to either have to give in, or you're going to have to put a guy on and work out, or work with guys on base and work in high stress situations, which Neither of those are good options. The best way to pitch is with the bases empty, and David Peterson has done a good job of that. And on Monday, he did get himself into a couple of jams, but nothing religious where he was constantly falling behind 2-0, 3-0, and he was able to work out of the jams that he did get himself into. So the Mets once again victorious with David Peterson on the mound. In the Bronx, they'll send Jose Quintana and Sean Manaea to the mound. Quintana making his first start of the second half. That was pushed back. And for Manaea, not his best start by any means in Miami. Not a disaster either. He was fine. He wasn't as crisp as we've been accustomed to him being. But, for him to leave that game having allowed 5 runs, I looked back and I was like, it didn't really feel like 5 runs in a way. So Sean, I'm sure, will look to bounce back. And Sean has pitched well against the Yankees, and he's been great all season. So Sean Manaea has really become a reliable starter for this Mets team. He's been that all season. So excited to see him getting a taste of the Subway Series on the other side of town. As for you guys, drop in the comments. Are you going to be there? Are you going to the Bronx? Do you like going to see the Mets in the Bronx? Do you like to stay away from the Bronx? We know it's a different atmosphere, right? It's not Citi Field. It's not home. I went to the Bronx one time this year. I will say the Yankees do have a fun situation out there. On I think that's 161st Street out. I'm not familiar with the streets, but Stan's and Billy's and all the nightlife that they've got going on. It's a fun time out there, and the Yankee fans are definitely an interesting crowd. The bleacher creatures are certainly one of a kind. I think we can all agree on that. And hey, I mean, look, the Mets win a game, they get to have the bragging rights of they won the season series from the Yankees, and that's the advantage they have by sweeping the first installment of the Subway Series. But of course, look, it's that first 4 when the Mets come back home Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday against the Atlanta Braves, who the Mets have a chance to make up some ground on with head-to-head wins, and those are all 2-game swings. So that'll be huge. It'll be a really big week at Citi Field. Of course, Friday night, we've got our third fireworks show of the night. We've got DJ Night and our boy DJ Razor. If you're not familiar with DJ Razor, you come to Citi Field any day or night of the year, and you hear all the great music we're playing at Citi Field. It's because our guy DJ Razor, easy for me to say, mixing it up, best in the business. You could hear his work over at UBS Arena too. But DJ Razor taking his setup from the booth up on the 5th floor all the way out to the Shea Bridge, and he'll be performing for you guys all night long. So make sure you're here nice and early, not bright and early, not too early on Friday to enjoy DJ Razor. We'll do a little pregame set, and then he'll be spinning it between innings as well. And like I mentioned, we have fireworks. And it'll be a little throwback, Flashback Friday is the theme for this fireworks show. So that'll be very exciting. And of course, Mets Braves, can't beat that. 2 teams that could be heading in opposite directions. I know a lot of people have been thinking about a little 2022 revenge on the minds of the Mets. Hey, look, the Mets want to make it happen. It's all right there ahead of them. They've got the Braves coming to town. They've got them for 4 games. Then you got the Minnesota Twins, and then the Mets hit the road again. It's a really, really weird month of August for the Mets, who are going to be away virtually the entire month. I know they were talking about this on the broadcast tonight. The Mets go to Anaheim to start the month. And they have the 1 game in St. Louis. And then we go to Colorado. So they'll be hopping time zones, which is crazy. Will definitely be a challenge for the Mets. And they come home for 9 games. And then they go back on the road for the rest of the month, including back out west. They'll make a trip to Arizona and San Diego, which Vito and I, if you guys didn't catch it, a couple episodes ago. I know the last episode was our great conversation with Howie Rose, which you should also check out if you haven't, by the way. Howie's incredible, and good to see his voice. Good to hear his voice, not see his voice. You can't see voices. I guess Ty can see my audio waves right now. But good to hear Howie's voice on the broadcast down in Miami. He'll travel back up with the team for the Subway Series and the 7-game homestand. But there are many, many big series ahead for the Mets, which Vito and I spoke about the last time we were together doing a little series recap episode a couple of Sundays ago, right before the All-Star break. And I guess I'm kind of reiterating it right now that this is a crucial month. I know it kind of goes without saying. Crucial few days for the Mets leading up to the deadline. And then the head-to-head matchups that they have with all these teams that are right there. I mentioned the Cubs and the Giants and the Pirates and the Nationals and the Reds that are teams who are within striking distance, let's say, of a playoff spot. But then you have teams like the Padres and the Braves and the Diamondbacks, who the Mets all have head-to-head games remaining with. So buckle up. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is why we watch, right? This is what we enjoy. We like the stress of sitting on our couch on a late, hot July night on a Monday, getting all stressed out in the bottom of the ninth inning. Will they blow it? Won't they blow it? Do they need more insurance runs? Okay, they secured a win. Put in the books. We're going to have a happy podcast. We're going to meet at the Apple. It's going to be good. That's why we watch, right? So buckle up, Mets fans. It's going to be a fun ride moving forward. And it all starts on Tuesday night and Wednesday night in the Bronx. So that's my solo recap. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. Let's see, it's been 26 minutes of me talking nonstop. Some people would tell you that's their worst nightmare. For me, I don't know. I mean, look, it's kind of weird. I miss Vito. I know Vito would have enjoyed this victory for sure. He is definitely asleep right now. I think he's 7 hours ahead of us. So I think it's 5 a.m. right now, Greece time. So Vito will be back. I think he'll be back for the Thursday game against the Braves. So not entirely sure what we're going to do for Wednesday's recap of the Subway Series. If you guys are going, drop a comment in the section. I may or may not make my way out to the Bronx on Tuesday night. We'll see. I know I wasn't going if the Mets didn't win on Monday. I'll tell you that much. But that has been accomplished. So we're all good there. And it'll be a really, really fun time. Mets Yankees Subway Series. Round 2, like I said, Jeff McNeil. I like him to stay hot in the Subway Series. We'll see if that prediction comes true. Anyway, make sure to drop a follow to both Vito and myself. I am at JMB9191. Vito is at Vito F. Khaleesi. You could follow the show by subscribing to the Mets YouTube page. You could also subscribe to the podcast itself on either Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever else you might get your podcasts. You have a lot of choices, so I'm not going to tell you where you should and shouldn't get them from. But wherever you do get them from, make sure you subscribe to the show. We will be back at you after what is hopefully a happy meet at the Apple after Wednesday's game. Mets Yankees, round 2. Let's go, Mets. Have a good night, folks. Take care.